It is definitely worth it to play in an orchestra.
Music can change your life.
I fell in love with my instrument and with music.
The more I learned, the more I wanted to play.
I really love playing with the orchestra. It's fun. The payoff is huge.
There's a community that you find in music.
I'm just in love with it. I can't imagine my life without music.
Hello, I'm Amy Bishop of Classical 101.1 WRR-FM. Thanks for joining us for another visit to a symphony orchestra. Today, we're going to meet some of the players in the new Philharmonic Orchestra of Irving. They're all highly trained musicians, and many of them started playing in an orchestra when they were in school. Today, they have another career. They may be teachers, accountants, doctors, or IT engineers, but they're still musicians. And together, they're the new Philharmonic Orchestra of Irving, whose Sundays at the Symphony afternoon concerts each season at the Irving Arts Center are often the first place families hear great symphonic music. Some of you have asked how they found their instruments and why they've kept playing in an orchestra, even after school years. Has it changed their lives somehow? And is it worth it? What's it like to play in an orchestra? Well, let's ask them. Here are some of their stories about how music has become a part of their lives.
I distinctly remember when I was 4 years old, my mother took me to a children's Peter and the Wolf concert. I heard the orchestra perform all of the different instruments represented, various animals and characters in the story, and that is how I knew from the age of 4 that I wanted to play the oboe. The orchestra performed this piece by Prokofiev, and the oboe played the duck character. And for some reason, as a 4-year-old, I just knew I had to be the duck. And so from then on, I would not stop bugging my mother about teaching me to play the oboe.
I started playing clarinet many years ago, back when I was right before I started junior high. Actually, I didn't know what the instrument was called at the time. I just knew what it sounded like. If I can tell you a little story, back then my father had a construction company. He bought a new pickup truck. Back then cassette tapes were the deal, and the maker provided a sample tape in the new truck. And I heard this music that I never heard before, and I was in love with this sound of this instrument because it was happy sounding. I pictured a little piece of chocolate bouncing around with the notes it was playing. And it wasn't until later in that year when someone in school pulled out an instrument and then played on the bus. And instantly, I heard the same sound from that instrument as I heard on the tape, and that's when I found out it's a clarinet. And I knew that's what I wanted to play back then.
Well, I actually didn't pick the French horn. It was chosen for me. When I was in the 5th grade and we were choosing our instruments for the next year, all my friends wanted to play the clarinet, so I did too. And the band director called me into her office and she said, "My horn player is graduating and I want you to play it." And I didn't even know what a French horn was. And so she showed me the instrument. She opened up this beautiful brass, curly instrument sitting in purple velvet, and I just went, "Oh, it's so pretty. I'd love to play that." For me, it adds personal expression. It's also the communication that we have with each other as musicians, with our audience as we play for them, with our conductor as we create this great work of art. Music isn't music until it's played.
I went to school for music business, but I keep playing even though I'm not in the music industry anymore. Just because it's relaxing, it's a fun hobby to have. I meet people I wouldn't meet in my current job. I grew up around musicians in high school and college, and so those are my people. That's who I enjoy being around.
At first, I actually picked percussion. A friend of mine was going to play percussion, and he had this really cool suitcase full of a drum pad and bells and all these cool things that you hit. And I thought, well, that's a lot of fun. So I did that for about the first 2 months of the school year for 6th grade. But the whole time I kept looking across the room at the trumpet players, and they were doing all these cool little things. And I'm like, that looks like fun. And I had a friend playing trumpet, and I finally just broke down and said, "Mom, can you take me to the music store? I really want to play trumpet." From from that point on, I just was sold. I never was told to practice. I came home every day and wanted to practice. I just loved it.
I started out playing the oboe. I started taking elementary band in 5th grade, and our elementary band teacher was an oboist. And she talked to my parents. There were 5 children in my family, and she told them that she had gone to college on scholarship because she played the oboe. And my parents thought that sounded like a great idea, so I started out playing oboe. Then the band director said, I need a bassoon player. How about taking this instrument? And so he gave me the instrument to take home and with a book and said, see what you can do. I love playing it.
When I was in elementary school, all the students got a chance to play an instrument, and this was in 5th grade, and I got a chance to play the violin. And I didn't realize how much I loved it until I kept bringing it home, and I loved it so much that I asked for a violin for Christmas that year. So going back to school that spring, I carried 2 instruments, the school instrument and my instrument. And this is actually the same instrument I got.
The clarinet has meant many things for me. Back when I was young, I was very shy. But what the instrument did for me, obviously, is to help me express myself. Once I understood the fingerings, once I understood the sound that I wanted to come from the instrument, it gave me my voice of expressing myself. And in essence, it became a part of me. When I perform, that really, the instrument's enabling me to be who I want to be, and then hopefully inspire some other folks to pick up the instrument and have it change their lives as it changed mine.
If I was talking to a 6th grader who was going into music, they should try all the instruments. You know, I thought viola is the place I wanted to be, and ended up at the bass. I never would have picked this instrument at first because it seemed a little overwhelming, but now I love it, and I wouldn't have it any other way.
Well, I did get a degree in business at school, got out and got a professional career, but I love music so much, and I love playing this instrument, the trumpet, so much that I got out of school and I just had to start playing again. It's a side job, a side passion of mine, but I just love to play my horn, and I love playing with different groups.
I would say, don't make a decision in 6th grade that you may regret later on, deciding that you don't want to continue. I have never heard an adult say, I am so glad that I stopped playing an instrument. I have heard many adults that say, oh, I wish my parents had made me keep playing. It's worth it.
If I would have looked back and realized, oh, I didn't join the orchestra, or I didn't go to perform in that concert, each one, as our conductor said, it's a blessing, it's a gift. Each time you get to play, it's a gift, especially if you have that gift. So you owe it to yourself to hone your craft and to give it back, spread the joy that you got.
It is definitely worth it to play in an orchestra, even if that is not your career. There's so much joy that music can bring you, playing in an orchestra with colleagues, presenting something that's bigger than yourself individually, and it brings so much joy to the audience as well.
Wow, so many great stories. It's wonderful to be an orchestra musician, and best of all, it's something you can be a part of your whole life. Most players would say that if you can, stay in orchestra through school years and then look for a community orchestra or another group to join. Many of these orchestras rehearse after hours, in the evenings or weekends, to make it easier for players to balance their work schedules with practice and performance. In orchestra, you'll learn things like how to concentrate, how to practice and persevere, which means working through hard times, even when you feel like you might want to quit. You'll learn how important the beauty of music is in a world that can be high pressure and often difficult. Music adds something extra. I wouldn't want to be without music in my life, would you? Thank you to the members of the new Philharmonic Orchestra of Irving for sharing a bit of their own lives as orchestra musicians with us. And thanks to you for joining us for another in this series of modules on what's it like to play in an orchestra. See you next time.
There's so much joy that music can bring you.
I'm glad I came to orchestra. I met a lot of people.
Music introduced me to team mentality or teamwork.
My band director in junior high really changed my life.
When I'm on stage, it's more than a joy.
I have music in my heart, and I just love making music.